Welcome to the final lesson of the Good Witch project. I'm going to open the Good Witch 3. I'm going to click See Inside, and I'm going to do File, Save as a Copy. Change it to 4, do a File, Save Now. We need a new sprite. It's going to be an arrow that the witch can shoot. So I go down to this little cat face button in the lower right corner, and it says Choose a Sprite. And I'm going to do arrow 1. Okay, I'm going to go to costumes, and I want the arrow pointing up, and it's a little too big, so I'm going to make it 50. And um, now when I start it, let's see, I'm going to go to code, and when I receive start, let's see, or when I receive B actually, I'm going to go to code, and it's events. When I receive start, I'm going to go to looks, and I'm going to hide the arrow. I'm just going to put a little block like that. Now we're going to go back to costumes, and if I right click on the costume, I'm going to say duplicate, or say how many arrows do I want? All right, now for each arrow, I'm going to convert to bitmap. I'm going to choose a color, then choose the paint can, choose a different color, I have to convert each one to a bitmap first to be able to color it. So what have I got for colors? I've got red, blue. These colors are too similar. So each one arrow, I'm going to convert to a bitmap. And one more. convert to a bitmap. Click the paint can. All right, so now I've got these, my arrows are all different colors. So I'm going to go back to code, go back to the top, and then file, save now. All right, we're going to use the space bar to shoot arrows. And we're going to say when space key pressed, and we're going to make a copy. It's going to be create clone of myself. So this is an interesting concept in computer science. You can make copies of an object in Python. They might be called classes, and other programming languages they might call instances of an object. So every time you hit a space bar, you're going to make a copy of the arrow. And then when you say control, now you've created a clone of the object, a copy. And when I start as a clone, first thing we're going to do is we're going to show the object. But before we show the object, we have to move to the top of the wedge. So we're going to go to XY, but we want to go to the position of the witch. You remember, the witch could be moving back and forth when you hit the left and right arrow keys. So we're going to copy these two blocks called backdrop of stage. And we change the stage to good witch. We're going to now be able to go to so I copied backdrop of stage, and then I changed stage to witch. And now we're going to go to X position of witch and Y position of witch. And then we're going to go to looks, and we're going to show the clone, which was hidden. Because remember, when we started it, we hid the original parent one. And then we'll go to sounds, and we're going to start sound called pop. But now we have the different costume colors. So we're going to switch to one of the costumes. And we're going to use pick random. And since I have 8 costumes, we're going to do pick a number between 1 of 8. So when I start as a clone, I'm going to move to the witch right here. I'm going to show the arrow. I'm going to switch to costume random number, one of the costumes, and I'm going to start the sound pop. Okay, remember we had a variable called moving. And first thing we have to do is if we stop moving, we're going to have to turn it on. So we're going to go to control and we're going to say if, and then we're going to have an operator block. And then we go to our variables. If moving equals off, we're going to set moving to on, excuse me, and then we're going to broadcast start. So if we stopped it because we had hit the witch, we want to turn it back on again when we hit the space bar. Now we just want to have a loop. We want to go to our control block and we want to say, we want to repeat until. And we go to, I think it's motion here, or sensing. All right, so when he started as clone, the first thing we do is the arrow is going to move to the witch. And then we're going to show the arrow. We're going to change the costume. We're going to start the sound pop. If it's off, we're going to turn it on and we're going to broadcast start. And then if we're in the loop, we're just going to change the Y variable to each by 4 each time. So I think we have to go to the motion block and I have to choose the selector here. Let's see, what do we have here? Maybe it is here. Oh, here it is. This is what I'm looking for. We're going to change the Y position by 4. And let's try that now. Oh, I see the problem is that this code has to be outside the if block. I had it inside the if block. So now okay. Okay, so what we want to do is when we get to the top, we want to hide the arrow. So we go to the looks and we put a hide down here. It's kind of complicated. Okay, the hide. All right. So now we're going to say File, Save Now. And when I hit B, I think I just... Okay, so now we were shooting the arrows, so we have just one more thing to do. And we say if touching which, or if touching Terry, if sensing touching Terry, what do we want to do? My notes tell me we set moving to off and stop all. It's not oof, it's off. And I think the stop all is going to be in the control. And I think when we get to the top, it's better to, I'm going to make it a little smaller. When we get to the bottom, instead of hiding it, it's better to delete this clone. All right, let's save this. And this is pretty complicated. I hope I explained it. All right. Now, notice when the arrow hit the bird, I got it. And that's what is supposed to happen. So now when the arrow hit the bird, I set moving to off, which tells everything to stop, and then I stopped everything. And when I hit the arrow again, of course, if I don't get out of the way, if I don't get out of the way, I get the dun 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 sound. And the way you start it again is you hit another space bar, which will set up a new arrow and start it going again. And that's the program. Um, I don't think I explained it very well, but in the arrow code is fairly complicated. So you have this very simple block of code. When spacebar key press, create a clone of myself, and then you have this very complicated block of code, or moderately complicated code. And I'll just review it, and you can pause it here. And then there's just delete this clone. So when I start as clone, you go to the position of the witch, you show the arrow, you switch to the costume, make a different color costume, you broadcast pop. If you had stopped it because you hit the bird, you need to set moving. If moving is off, you need to turn it back on again. You need to broadcast start. Now you have a repeat loop. You change Y by 4, which moves the arrow up, 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 up. And if you're touching the bird, you set moving to off. You stop all. And then at the bottom, you delete the clone when you hit the edge. So that's the end of this project. So look for other projects in my website, and I'll see you in the next lesson.